for Town of New Paltz Planning Board, January 26th. February 9th, can everybody come? Form check?
I'll be here.
So. Matt's looking.
What is it, the 9th?
Mhm.
Tentatively, yes.
Okay.
Depends on time.
So we still can't do the minute approval for November 10th. Was, I wasn't here and we don't have a quorum for the rest of for everyone else. And January 12th, we can't do either because you weren't here, right? Yes.
I read it.
I don't think you have to be at the
I don't think you have to be at the meeting.
It's best practice, but it's not required.
Okay, so. Let's do January 12th. Do you have a motion to approve the minutes of January 12th?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna still hold off on November 10th. So I read it. Anyone here for public comment? There's no one here. Okay, Horsedon Road subdivision. Is Andy here?
Yeah,
Hi, Andy.
all right.
Okay. Let's start with, with you, if you don't mind.
Are Andy's notes not in the Unicolab?
Yeah.
They should be, right?
Yeah, I uploaded them, and everybody has a paper copy of the notes.
Oh, sweet.
Oh,
I read them, I just need to refer them.
that's everything that Nadine submitted.
Andy?
Yeah. So do you want me to go over my letter?
Sure.
Okay, they addressed most of the issues that we raised in our last letter. The first one is just a lot of these are just kind of minor cleanup stuff or minor changes, really. The first one is just change the item 4 type for the shoulder to be item 4 instead of select gravel. The second 2 and 3 are just the easement. Some of the drainage improvements. It's important that they're within the easements, or that if there's a dispute between the neighbors, and that the town won't be able to get to the drainage improvements to maintain them. So we just make them larger, either make the easement larger or change the layout a little bit on the stormwater to make sure it's within the easements. Number 4, I think the note should be that double star, because that lot, I think it's that one lot that has the frontage on Route 30 on Route 32. So it just has to change that note a little bit, and maybe the wording. I usually refer to the right of way as a town road, not an easement. Oh, number 5 is the one that should be the double star on lot 4. Just to clarify that it has frontage on Route 32 to meet the code requirement. The wetland inspector, I just want to make sure he was okay with the letter from the DEC, and he wrote that new letter. Mark Carabato did, and it looks like he is. All the wetlands already have 100-foot buffers, so they are all the ones that the DEC referred to or regulating have 100-foot buffer. So the map is good on that end of the DEC wetlands. I think part of the discussion will be this conservation easement. I'm sure Cassandra is going to talk about this, and what are we going to call this conservation area, conservation easement, and what areas are buildable. I think it's something that we need to discuss with the board, and what that means, and what's the nomenclature on the plan. They did submit an engineer's estimate, so they need to provide a either a letter of credit or a bond, because they will build the road and then dedicate it over to the town. So that number for the total amount has to be accurate. I didn't take a detailed review yet, just because there could be some minor changes between now and when we finalize. So I will, when the time comes, I will review that and get that number finalize that number on the cost of the road. The markers, the conservation area markers. So we talked a little bit about this last meeting about, if you're on your lot and you get to this conservation area that's restricted, what does it look like? How do you mark that in the field? And there's a couple different ways to do that. Right now, I think they're showing kind of sort of a simple post, 4-foot high post, either out of metal or I think it's a metal post that's showing now. So we should talk about that and what that's going to look like. Driveway maintenance agreement is currently being prepared for lots 3 and 4 because they're sharing a driveway and they're going to submit that. They submit septic plans to the health department, sounds like, and they're waiting on their approval, which will probably take a little while, in my experience. And a waiver request, as I understand, was already submitted for items that are not on the subdivision plan.
Sounds like there's still stuff to do.
There are, but some of this stuff is like the first few are pretty minor. And then some of the other things really are kind of get finalized as you get towards the end. And in my experience.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on to Cassandra.
Yeah, so just to echo some of the points. The applicant should remove all reference to a conservation easement and just call it a conservation area, or the board should come up with a different term. And then the deed restrictions, when they are filed consecutively, should be referenced, like the actual document should be referenced that it's being drafted, and the list is fine, but it needs to be cross-referenced to make sure they know that those were filed with every deed and there's actually a restrictive covenant on file. The board should discuss whether or not they want a broader scope, or is that enough to conserve the area? They actually listed it on the plat themselves. Hold on, I have a reading from. The waiver request, I did see it. If that's the only waiver request, you just need to you should cite it in the plan and show it on the plans. It's not clear to me that it's shown, but I'm not an engineer and it's more of an engineering comment. But it's not, I think Andy had the same comment as I don't see where they're requesting the relief from the 10% grade. And then the monument poles, I agree, the board should discuss whether or not what the proposed signage should say and include materials and design, whether or not the board is okay with that. And if there's any additional waivers, we just need a letter and why they want a waiver from that part of the planning preliminary plat section before preliminary plat is finalized.
Thank you. Nadine?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out on a terrible night. If it's okay, so I'm just going to touch base on the waiver request, because back in I'm just looking here, in July, we had submitted with our narrative and cover letter at that time, waiver requests in writing for 5 different things. One which doesn't apply because we're not doing a cluster development. There were a couple that the highway department already agreed to, as far as the shoulder width. There were a couple items that I know we discussed with the board, as far as showing all the isolated trees. We had that discussion early on, and even Andy had said, that that it kind of was like just individual trees if there were significant individual trees. So so the one with the 10% grade, we did submit in our cover letter, I want to say back in October. And I would assume that if the highway department and the engineer recommends the plan as it's shown with that we, but if you want that listed on the plan, I can definitely add it. Is that what you're saying? You want that saying that there's been a waiver for that 10% grade.
I wasn't sure if the grade was shown going off a comment Andy made in a prior letter. And has that been updated to show that it's less than what the town code states?
So we're talking about two different things, really. So the one that we do on every project that's listed in my letter is if there's any requirements that are supposed to be on the subdivision plan that you're not showing on the plan. That's the one that I'm talking about in my letter. Like if you have existing contours and you're not showing them, you're asking for a waiver. Or you may not need any waivers. You know, do you meet those requirements of that section of code that I list in my letter? So that's the one issue. And did you say you submitted that? And this is not the grade issue. This is just what is shown on the plan, but you said you submitted that?
Yeah, way back in July. So it was a waiver request from that 121-14A 1A isolated trees. 121-22 street and shoulder width, which we've since actually, even went down further because we got that from the highway department. 121-21S street trees, which I don't think there's actually been a decision on that one. I think that was kind of like, well, can we see what the final plan looks like and then make a decision on that? So I don't think we actually have a waiver in place for the street trees. And then was sidewalks, 121-22, the sidewalks. And I think that was discussed as well, and that, that wasn't relevant for this. So, we did have narratives about, why we were requesting the waivers, and we can absolutely list all of these on the plans if that's the requirement.
In other municipalities, it's not usually a requirement, it's usually a recommendation. I don't know how this board if they typically list them. But nothing's been granted yet, to be clear. The board has to grant them, and they'll be granted at preliminary and final plat if the board chooses to do so. So there's no waiver that's been granted. It could be recommended by the engineer and the highway super, but it's not granted until the final and preliminary plat. And it'll be part of that resolution.
We have to have those requests in place, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So we usually don't list those on the plan. It's just a waiver request and a letter, and then when they approve the resolution, then they approve it in that way. But I'm looking, I may not have it, but was it attached to, you said July 29th?
Yeah, so our letter was dated July 28th. And, it was the cover letter for the submission. We sent in a revised DAF, and there were, some items in there that we, talked about and submitted. And so item 15, which would have been page 2 of that submission, that was all the waiver requests. Yeah.
So it was within your cover letter there. I see it now.
Yeah, I see it as well.
So you have isolated trees, shoulder width, street trees, sidewalks. Okay, so we have it for the board to consider.
Okay, all right,
And
thank you.
the road grade is a different part of the code.
Correct, so that was actually, because that was discussed
Yeah.
later, that was in a different letter. I say it was October, but I could definitely resubmit it. I can resubmit all of them if you like.
I just want to know if those calculations are on the plans for the road grade. That one, I think
Yes.
it should be
Yeah.
shown because it's part of the calculation.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
Okay, so, going a little back to what Andy said, the plan set that we just submitted addressed, the conversations that we had at the last meeting, which I know it took us a little bit to get back to you guys. So the items like 1 through 5 that Andy talked about are very minor. We've actually already made those changes today in the office. They were very minor. And as he says, wetland inspector sent his letter in. He's happy with everything. There's no permit required from the town or the DC. he requested that a note be added to the plan that there's no disturbance, but there's already a note. Right under our notes for wetlands. It says that there's no disturbance to the wetland in our buffer areas proposed as part of this application, so that's been covered. So at the last meeting, we did talk about the conservation areas or easements kind of in length. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought that was the request at that time, that they be called easements. But, you know, if they're gonna be areas, I can change the name. I can change it back to conservation area. They are literally easements over these lots, but we can call them whatever the
It's
town wants
not,
to call.
to be clear, it's not a conservation easement. A conservation easement is a legal term that requires a third party to hold.
Okay,
And therefore it can't, like, it's defined by the environmental code, within the state of New York. So it, just to clarify, so people don't go looking for it, a separate easement on file. It's a kind of easement, but it's not a conservation easement, and that just has a very specific legal definition.
okay, so, and you know what, when we get to more of that, I'll definitely let Dan talk. I just want to know for our next submission that I label them properly, and I will have to have the surveyor relabel them as well, because I had him call them conservation easement boundaries. So they're going to be referred to as conservation areas. Is that correct?
I don't know. Cassandra, are there other, I mean, because it sounds like that could also be confusing. Is there something else that people use?
Yeah, I mean, conservation area is one, you could call it other things. I mean, it's kind of whatever language the board likes. I mean, you could just call it restrictive area.
I like that
I
better.
just don't like the term easement in there.
And I don't like the word conservation because I think it's gonna get confused with conservation easement. I
Yeah,
don't know.
Unbuildable? Is that too simple? An unbuildable
I
area?
was thinking restrictive
Restricted.
area. I mean, it's kind of harsh sounding, but.
No,
What
I-
about,
is-
what about a natural protection or, protection, environmental protection area?
I do know, that some subdivisions that I've been involved in this exact thing that's been called a conservation area. So I know there is some precedent for doing it that way, but
Yeah, I mean, I would rather not make up a term, like it would be, if it's
No,
something.
right,
that's-
right. So you're saying that it's common to call it a conservation area?
yeah, I have seen that for some recent subdivisions doing this exact same thing.
All right.
I also
then-
have seen it.
Yeah, I
You
think
have-
that makes
all
the
right.
most
Good to
sense.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right, so let's do that. Okay,
Okay.
I know, Dan, you wanted to say something. You're good with that?
Yes, I am. I was just gonna say that, I have always seen conservation area. Sometimes you see protected area, but one of those two terms, are the common terminology nomenclature that they use on these. And I just want to add, and by the way, my name is Dan Leary. I'm the attorney for the applicant. I heard everything Cassandra said about the restrictions. I agree with everything she said. The applicant accepts that these will be noted and listed on the filed subdivision plat, and that they will be in the corresponding restrictions will be in the deeds as part of a condition of any approval, and that you will see the language of those deeds that again will match whatever you put on the subdivision plat as the restrictive covenants that will apply to the conservation areas. So that's typically the way it's done. And I think Cassandra described it perfectly, and we're in agreement with that.
Okay, so on the plans, we will definitely change everywhere it says conservation easement to conservation area. That's not a problem at all. We did show some locations, and it would be on sheet 2. They're very clear where we believe that the signage should be. I don't know if the board has taken a look at that. It actually might even be more clear on sheet 3. It's a little kind of more blown up of some of the areas close to the building sites. But, so we show those locations, plus we do include, a marker detail, which Andy had said, we're proposing, basically a green metal, like a U-shape post, which is a typical kind of signpost or fence post, with a printed sign on it that's either like a 4x4 or a square or a 4-inch diameter sign. And we had some language on it, which we will make consistent with what we have. But we have on there to label conservation area boundary. And, then it states that, that area is to be protective, from development. Oh my gosh, I can't even see, for the preservation of wildlife and wetlands. So, any comments from the board on that type of marker?
And I've seen some markers there. I guess they're called monument markers. They're a little bit nicer looking. Have you seen those?
What's that, Duff?
Monuments, like monument markers.
Yeah, I like that better. First of all, I don't think it needs to be 4 feet high. I think, 2 feet high on a day like today.
I think she said 4. Did you say 4 feet high?
Yeah,
So-
that's what she has on the plan. I don't think it needs to be that
Oh,
high.
Right, so the post itself would stick out of the ground 4 feet, and the little sign that's attached to it would be at the top. And again, it'd be like a 4x4 sign, so it's pretty tiny.
Oh.
But are you thinking like you want survey monuments? I know somebody.
I think,
Mhm.
I think that, this is gonna sound ridiculous, but I think whoever moves into that house is gonna take the sign down. I
I
mean,
don't,
some of these things are right next to the person's driveway. Right? That's where you're proposing putting signs.
Right, and that's, sorry, go ahead.
So like maybe some sort of like I don't know, like sometimes for surveying, they use things that are like almost in the
Monuments,
ground
little
or
monuments.
close to the ground.
Yeah,
And you know what I'm
concrete
talking
monument.
about?
Yeah, I think it should be a survey or concrete monument.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I haven't seen those.
because if it's a
And
big sign, I feel like it's zip done.
Yeah, and green.
Yeah.
No one's gonna want it.
Solve
So
I
are
mean,
we
just
putting
being practical.
concrete monuments at every bend or corner?
It seems like you have a lot on here from what I see. I don't know, Andy, you think that's a lot?
Oh, is it here?
I added more because of the size that we were proposing and the type of sign we were proposing cost-wise was not significant, but for concrete markers, that's definitely too many.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need.
I mean, I definitely think corners are important, right? Findable corners.
I think corners are consistent. Typically, that's typically the condition I put on as resolutions is on the corners as agreed to by the engineer.
How many are there? Nadine, you know?
How
Oh my
many
God.
corners? A lot.
And it's 8, let's see, maybe 20?
You might save like 5 or 10 if you get rid of all the ones in between on the straight runs. There's
Yeah.
some that are along the driveways that are kind of like, you don't need to have that many.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I don't think there's really that many, but if you want to eliminate some, I think if you don't put them, if you take them out of straight runs, I think that makes sense. But if you take them out of where it turns, then it's, people might misunderstand where it is. So I think if it's a straight run, I think you could take out some of the middle ones. But if there's a turn in the easement, I think it needs to be there.
Okay, you know what? I agree totally with that. Yep. So at all corners and bends, and we'll change the language that's on there. So as far as being a concrete survey monument, that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think we need a detail for that. Is that correct?
Well, I think it still needs to say,
What it is.
yeah.
The size.
Yeah,
What it
yeah.
is.
Yeah, so
I think, yeah.
At least a sign detail, but I mean, it also how high they're gonna be. I think you should have 2 feet high and the sign language as a detail.
Oh, so you still want to sign on a post?
Yeah, I think it should be the
Yeah.
concrete. I think it's the same detail, but just not 4 feet high, because I think 2 feet is plenty. And with something on there, that sign, the board can look at that wording, but I think it should say what it is, because people aren't gonna know what it is, what doesn't say it.
But you're saying the sign should be sticking up straight from the monument? No, that's not what
No, I think
you're
you
saying.
No,
attach
plaque.
it. Yeah, you attach it to the front.
Yes.
And then they can take it off.
Well, that's,
Still
you
big.
gotta have, but actually, that's why a plaque would be better, because it's much harder to remove.
Yeah.
It's much easier to take down an aluminum sign. It's much harder to take off a
Yes.
plaque that's into
Yes.
concrete.
Yes, and I think people like that.
If I
I mean, they're
wasn't
not
a
gonna like that
landlord, I
little
would
sign
agree with
sticking
you.
out, but they're gonna like that little plaque. It's like, an ownership plaque. I just did an image, so.
And Nadine, I don't think this is much different than when you're proposing. You're proposing a 4x4 inch aluminum post. You're not gonna just stick that in the ground anyway. You're gonna have to dig it out or put a footing in, and so it's not really that different than what you were already proposing.
Yeah, no, we were doing a metal, like a U metal signpost with the sign on it. So the post height was 4 foot, but there's no concrete footing. It would be embedded 2 foot in the ground. But, listen, it's,
Has to be concrete.
and I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. So the plaque goes on the concrete monument at all these locations.
And make it something, that the person won't want to rip off, I guess.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but I think if it's attached that way, the way you described it.
And 2 foot exposed above the grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, that's fine. I just want to make sure that,
Fine.
we
I don't think.
get that. All right.
Trip hazard.
I have a question for Andy.
Slower.
In the conservation and easement area restrictions, I think I'm on page sheet 2.
Mhm.
It says, stormwater management practices as shown herein shall be installed at access, inspect, and maintain as necessary by town and or owner. Should it be just owner? Or should it be the town as well?
I think what stormwater practices are in the conservation area, Nadine?
So, on lot 2, the entire easement that goes over that, grass swale and level spreader, that's in the conservation easement and, area, sorry. And that easement goes all the way through it. So, so that's there. And then on lot 5, same, that whole, swale and level spreader. And then the easement that goes with it, that goes all the way down to Route 32. That's basically all through the conservation area.
So I think it definitely needs to be the town. Arguably not the homeowner, but I don't know that I wanna prevent them from doing that on their own property if it's clogged with leaves or something. So
They could have the right, but not the obligation, the homeowner.
yeah,
And-
Yeah, that makes sense.
so I'm
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, just checking.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I mean, the language that says access, inspected, and maintained as necessary. So it's, it's just giving the opportunity. So while we're on those, did anybody else have any questions or concerns on that language, or did we cover everything with that?
I think we're good.
Okay. Okay. All right, great.
hold on, let me just ask our building inspector. You
What's
good
that?
so far?
Excuse me.
You good so far?
Yeah, no, I'm trying to keep distance. I'm just an observer.
Okay,
All right. Well, some of these things might have to do with the building
Yeah,
inspection, right, at some point, which,
So I think the monuments definitely need to be high enough that somebody's not gonna hit them with a mower, that they're visible enough. I think they only need to be at the corners. And that's about it. And preferably they have, I don't know, like surveyor stakes frequently have a metal rod or something that, so if it's lost, you can find it with a metal finder. That's what surveyors do. But
Yeah.
I don't know, if that works or not.
Yep, so concrete monuments also have, like a rod basically
Rebar.
that comes right to the tip, so that will definitely work.
okay. Good so
Okay.
far.
All right, great. All right, I'm gonna move off that for a minute. Some of the other information that we did submit that was requested at the last meeting. Andy already discussed the engineer's estimate for the road and utilities. I do believe that this new signage will cost a little bit more, so we will update that with the marking of the the conservation area, but if Andy, when you get a chance to look at that, if you have any questions or concerns or anything else that has to be added or changed, just let me know. We did submit the New York State DEC jurisdiction that we just talked about. We submitted the survey of the subdivision with meets and bounds of all the lots and easements. So the only thing, when that's all finalized, I will have to ask them to change the language because I had them label conservation easements. So I will have them update that for conservation areas as long as nothing else changes. The plans were revised to add some notes about the Ulster County DPW. So we do know that we're going to need that. A couple things. We're going to be needing the permit from them, and we're going to be dedicating lands to them. So I believe that that can be a condition of the approval when we get there. And then, same, like you said, with the sanitary details, with the submission to the health department, obviously we'll need health department approval, and that would be a condition as well. So the other items and legal documents and easements and things like that, I'd like to turn it over to Dan a little bit. So if he has questions or concerns or like for next steps, that can be discussed with the board.
Well, thank you. Cassandra and I had a telephone conversation about, timing of things, and I think we're in agreement with, the legal instruments typically, are conditions of approval that have to be signed off before the chair signs the plat and it's filed. I will be working with Cassandra on that, so that's typically the way it rolls. I believe the offer of session should also be a condition of approval as well. And because we're not doing easements, it's going to be a conservation area. Again, the language, once the board agrees with what the restrictions are going to be, would be on the file plat and would be cross-referenced in the deeds and even spelled out in the deeds if that's the way you want to do it. So that's clear and unambiguous as to what they are. And I didn't really have anything else except for that, typically these things, are conditions of approval, which can take place once we have a public hearing and close it and conclude secra and do everything else when the resolution is drafted.
Yeah, I agree with everything Dan says. They're typically conditions of approval. The only thing I care about, from the board's perspective is just to ensure that you like the language that's currently on the plat, because that'll be the restrictions. Unless the town, I'll call the new town attorney to talk about if the town would like, language for the offer of session. I had an old template. I will use the new template. But the kind of language in the deed restrictions that'll be a planning board decision in a planning board document.
Okay, so
Um,
we have our part two. Are we ready to do that?
Before we do that, though, I forgot one item I didn't mention in my letter. So this will be a town road. It'll be dedicated to the town, and the town highway department will have to maintain it and plow it, and all the ditches and all that. So I think now that we're kind of there on the design, I think we should have a site visit with me and Nadine and Chris Marks to just walk through it and make sure that he's okay with, he doesn't have any major issues with it as far as like the stormwater design or where the road is. I think it'll, I think it's the time to do that if he wants us to make any tweaks to the design.
the only thing I wanna, say, there's a lot of snow there. To be
Yeah.
walking through right now, Andy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, we can definitely, if the planning board could, reach out, we could schedule something when weather is permitting.
I think weather permitting. Let's do it. Let's do it when we can get out there.
Yeah, I have short legs. I'm not getting through that snow.
Yeah.
Um, and the one other item, because this came in and then we didn't come back to the board, was the Ulster County Planning Board, recommendations. So I know the planning board should probably just look at them. I think they were all, basically the same thing. Health department, you need health department approval, you need this approval, that kind of thing. And I don't think they did required modifications because they didn't have a quorum maybe when they met, but
They were
just
having
for
a
the
problem.
record.
Right.
So we have to wait for that.
Where is it?
No, you have it.
No, we have it. Hold on.
What's the date?
So I'm looking. You see.
I just looked at it.
I found it. I thought it was just, it's all the way back from 11/5/2025.
We had
So-
2 meetings where we didn't have a quorum. We couldn't do any business,
So- The way this works is when they don't have a quorum, they have a statutory limit of 30 days, or I think for Ulster, it might be 60, but they have a statutory limit of when they receive the application to review it. They have not met their statutory deadline. So you don't have, like, that's considered their final response. They're not going to meet again on this. So that is the county's final response. Even though they didn't have a quorum, they did provide preliminary comments. As always, they are a guidance document. Unless they require a supermajority, they are always a guidance document. So the board should review them, but they're never required.
Yeah, that's what I thought, and I didn't think, we had gotten anything else, so, I just didn't want the board to miss something, and I think everybody's on the same page with that the board doesn't have to take any action.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Okay,
So.
we're ready to move on?
Yeah, so for this meeting, I have drafted a part 2 EAF. And you guys should go through the part 2 and part 3. And then a resolution has been drafted to make your seeker determination, which should be done prior to any public hearing setting.
Andy, do you want to go through this part two? Yeah, I know you didn't prepare it, but
I don't know that I have it. You emailed it, right, Cassandra?
I emailed it over, yeah.
Why is everything so difficult?
Did you guys, I'm sorry, did you guys send that to us as well, or no? Just to follow along? That's
I don't
okay,
know.
I sent it internally.
okay,
Where do you-
no problem.
here's an email.
All right.
It's what if we were going to try and have a public hearing that we had to go through this, so this happened late today.
Yeah, so subdivision requires a public hearing requires the close of seeker prior to setting a public hearing for all subdivisions. So you should, before you set a public hearing, you should do a determination for seeker.
Okay, I'm gonna go through it.
Please.
Okay. So there's 11 questions in part 2. First one is, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of the land? I would say that's a small impact, no or small. Will proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No, this is not in a CEA. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkways? This would be a small impact. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact public or private water? No. Will the proposed action impact public, private wastewater treatment? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No, I believe this was not archaeologically sensitive, this project.
Correct.
Will the action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna? I would say no or small. Will the proposed action result in an increase in potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? I would say small. They did a stormwater pollution prevention plan showing how they're going to mitigate those impacts. They have level spreaders for stormwater, so I'm going to say that's a small impact. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Do you want me to read that
Please.
part 3, Cassandra?
Yeah, I think, so I just put together a few sentences, for the part 3.
The summary in part 3, this subdivision will require a deed restriction and restrictive covenant over a portion of the site. Monuments will be erected on property boundaries to ensure compliance with these restrictions. Review of DEC wetlands determination dated October 27, 2025, and the letter by Mark Carabetta, wetlands consultant, dated January 23rd, 2026, indicated there are no impacts to DEC or Army Corps of Engineer wetlands. And then we're checking the box that based on the information above and any supporting documentation, the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts.
Thank you. Does anyone have comments on this part 2 or part 3? Okay. So we're going to take a vote on this now, Cassandra?
Well, yeah, I prepared a resolution, which I can read if the board would like, that just
That'd be-
adopts the negative termination. So whereas the applicant Horson 32 Holdings LLC have submitted an application to subdivide an approximately 30-acre parcel into 6 lots located at 50 Horson End Road, tax parcel SBL 78.2-3-26.112, the property in the rural agricultural district, whereas the proposed subdivision is depicted on a plat entitled Horson 32 Holdings LLC, prepared by Peak Engineering, dated April 28, 2025, last revised January 2nd, 2026. Whereas on October 16, 2025, the planning board voted on proceeding with a conventional plan with the stipulation a conservation deed restriction be drafted in lieu of a conservation easement over approximately 20 acres of open space. And whereas, and I needed the date, I emailed Melissa, whereas on blank, the planning board classified the project as an unlisted action and circulated its intent to serve as lead agency to all involved and interested agency to which no agency has objected. Does anyone know the date of which this was circulated?
Melissa said March 11th.
March 11th, that was when the determination was made. I don't know when they did the circulation. I'd
The
have to look. at the
determination
minutes.
was made March 11th. She needs to know the date of the circulation.
Okay, March 11th is the date, and it was circulated, correct? And no one objected? Just to
I'd have
confirm.
to read the minutes.
Okay, So I added March 11, 2025. Whereas the planning board has reviewed the short environmental assessment form obtained through site visits, its consultants and other agencies and has sufficient information to base a determination of significance. And whereas the planning board has considered all criteria in 6 NYCCR 617.7, completed parts 2 and 3 of the SEIF and thoroughly analyzed all identified relevant areas of environmental concern. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby adopts a negative declaration for the reasons set forth in the attached notice of determination of significance, finding the project will not result in a significant adverse impact and a draft environmental impact statement will not be prepared.
So, what about, you have all the planning board members' names. Is that appropriate, even though someone,
So what should be done is it should be marked on who was absent, so it keeps track of like attendance at meetings. So next to their names, it should be who it should say like yay, nay, absent of what you voted to keep
okay,
track.
Bob Cone is recused? Is his name still
Yes.
belong? Okay,
So all the resolutions will have everyone's name because that's who's sitting on the board at the time. So he would be, we put recused next to his name.
Okay.
When the clerk fills this out, she should be putting recused, absent, yay or nay for each person to keep track and who first and who seconded the motion.
we'll
On
see.
top.
Agree with that? Okay. Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote for this.
So
Great.
can I have you have to ask for a motion.
Yes, do I get a motion to accept this neg deck resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Aye.
Yes,
What are we doing?
name first.
Oh, Jennifer Wells, aye.
Matt Dodonna, aye.
Del Ruger, aye.
Adrian Capuli, aye.
Resolution passes.
Okay, so I think at this point we can set a date for public hearing.
Yes.
In a month? No, you can't make the next meeting, I think you said.
Yeah, you know,
23rd.
that would be great. February 23rd.
Oh, I'm just throwing numbers out.
Yeah,
Is that-
no, the
is that
meeting after
good?
next is the 23rd.
I'll make that motion to have the public hearing on February 23rd.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, is there anything else we need to do today on this application?
This was great, and I'm just gonna ask Cassandra, at the board, as far as referral to the highway department, we talked about that. Is that something, the planning board would do? Melissa will just send an email, or how do we wanna handle that?
Andy, how do you want to handle that?
You go to the planning board, to the,
I think a formal referral from the planning board, I think would make sense so that he knows, that it's time for him to take a look, but I could certainly talk to him as well, but I think the planning board should refer it to them.
Okay, do we need to vote on that referral? No.
Yes.
Do?
Yes, you
Oh,
should vote on the referral because it's a board
Okay.
I'll make a
action.
motion to send a referral to the planning, to the department.
Highway super.
Highway department, sorry.
Highway
should say
department,
DOT,
town- all right, highway
For Horsenden Road.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. And then as far as the referral to the town board, are we gonna wait to hear back from the highway superintendent?
So are you requesting a formal referral? I mean, the way it would
I don't think
typically.
we need one.
No,
Yeah.
Exactly.
okay.
The way it typically works is we recommend the bond of the town board in our final resolution.
Right.
And then once this is approved, I mean, you should be having preliminary conversations with the highway super or, the supervisor just to confirm they're going to take the road because it is additional expense to the town. And some towns do have a policy of not accepting the road. But typically, once you're approved, you would seek to be on the agenda of the next town board meeting.
Okay, great. Great, we
Is
will.
that how it usually works here, Andy?
What was that?
I know, is that the way it usually works here? It doesn't seem that I remember this. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been, most of the subdivisions don't have a new town road that's being dedicated that we do typically. So it's been a while since we did one, but yeah, the town, ultimately, the town board has to approve the offer of session and the road. I don't know that we've done a formal referral, but they certainly should be kept in the loop as, this is coming down the line to them.
And I usually rely on the applicant and other municipalities to do that because you shouldn't be seen advocating for an applicant. The board shouldn't be. So typically I rely on the applicant to ensure that they are this is what the town wants to do.
Adele,
Yes,
the other day, the fire chief was into my office and he said that he wanted to have a chance to review these drawings for any subdivision because he's concerned about fire access for his equipment. So I don't know if there's somehow with the Chris Marks thing, if we could include him.
okay. I mean, he wants to go to do a site visit?
Well, he
Or he
doesn't have
wants
to
to
go
look
to
at
the
the
site, but
plans?
he wants to look at the drawings and he has very specific requirements for getting his equipment in and out and make sure that,
This is our fire department.
and this just came up like last week or something.
So you could do a courtesy referral.
Okay, I don't know what that is, but,
So you would motion to send a courtesy
opposed to
referral to the fire department.
Do you say please when you're done? Is that how that works? Crazy?
I don't
Okay.
think it's a bad idea. I think I don't know that there's gonna be that many fire department issues here, but I think it's generally a good idea.
okay. We don't need a motion for a courtesy referral. Please don't tell me we do.
I typically I think it's best practice, but I mean, just because
Okay.
it's again board action. I usually do it when we circulate for
I'll make a
seeker.
motion to call the fire department and ask them nicely to come to the site visit at Horsham.
No,
Oh,
no, they
no,
just.
no. A courtesy
look at the map.
referral is just sending them the plans. So typically, so this would have been done, so I wasn't the attorney when you did seeker, but I usually do this at the seeker phase, and when you send it to county, it's a good practice to just send it to the fire department at the same time. But I think now that we're at this stage, we should definitely send it to them.
Okay. You second.
Second.
Does she know
All
the
in favor?
fire department?
Aye.
Aye.
I do not.
You
You know,
do?
if they don't respond, they don't respond. They're not required to, so it's just a courtesy referral.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it. And just Melissa, if you need anything from me with regard to noticing public hearings or, addresses and whatever, just let me know.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're all set. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.